Tanur Shizikua. You have a oven which has been stoked with kash, with straw, or bigvava, hay. This is, however, it's a tanur. It's a which is much harder because it's shaped like a cone. So lo yitem, you're not allowed to leave anything at all. And in Shabbos, lo yitem bein mitocho ben al gabav. You can't put anything both inside or on top of it. Kupach, which is a box like a kira but smaller. Kira is for 2 pots and a kupach is for 1 pot. Shizikua b'kasher b'gvava. He stoked it up with straw, with hay. Hareu kikiraim. It's like a kira, and you can leave stuff on. Begevs of his you stoked it with the sesame peat or with wood. Harei hukatan, or it's like an oven, and you may not leave anything on Shabbos. So we have kira, which is mutter even begefes of eitzim. We have tanur, which is also even b'kasha b'gvava, and we have kupach, which is mutter with one and also with the other. Tani bar kapora. We learned bar kapora said, I feel this smoke aser. Even to put something adjacent to a tanur is forbidden. Rav Simei Samich, this is a typo, the next word, should be lavir de tanur. Rav Simi put something next to the airspace of an oven. Only Ramada said, Vatani didn't back apart teaches, I feel this smoke aser. You can't put something even next to it. In other words, what you did is improper. Rabbi Mona Mekel Lenoshe, Rabbi Mona Lenashaya. Rabbi Mona used to curse the women. The Shachem Bigdain Lavir but the Tanur used to lay their wet clothes down next to a hot oven in order to dry off, because that's really, you're like cooking the water inside the clothing. That's forbidden.
This was on Shabbos.
Right.
How the clothes get wet on Shabbos?
I don't know. Yeah, either it was raining or they left it was still more west from before Shabbos. They're laundered. They were laundered before Shabbos. One of them. Rabbi Shmuel, Hore Midochak, he said he was more with difficulty, in which he was mounted for only thing with reservations. Migrav Tanura, he was allowed removing the oven, removing the stuff inside the oven, the coals, umesin klasa kapin, and putting on top the 3 piles of hay, umir malain, and putting the pot on them. Now the various Mepharshim here have difficulty with this a little bit, because previously we said there's even mutzal chatchila, right? You can even put stuff. You have to clear out all the stuff in the inside, but then you have to put in the 3 piles of hay, and then you can put something on top, right? That's like your large blech. So they say several things, but I think one of 2 possibilities is the most reasonable. Either that there, where they were matir before, they're matir only from before Shabbos, and here it's being matir on Shabbos itself, right? So it is like putting something back on a kedera gabi kedera, right? So it's matir to put on 3 bundles of hay, but even only midochak, only because there was this compelling reason to do so. That's one way of understanding. Another way of understanding is that over there where matir was a kira, and a kira is less hot, so therefore it's much easier to be matir, even l'chatchila. Here we're talking about a tanur. A tanur is much hotter, and therefore the halacha is more stringent that you cannot leave anything there. Normally, even if it's covered 3 bundles of hay, only if you're in a difficult situation. Says more, regardless, it was a difficult situation. As long as it should be megiros, her neighbors didn't know. As long as her neighbors didn't know. In other words, he allowed this, as long as the neighbors don't know. Now, the 2 Gillian Ashas here brings down, he says that we already had this, of course, in Yerushalmi, in Kilayim, a similar thing, right? That's what Meir mentioned in his Siyum, that Marasayan is only in people, there's no Marasayan people who come from elsewhere, right? Now, that's the only people in the same city. So we see by you're not concerned with what other people say. So here you see an extension of that principle, not an extension, but a similar principle. You see that you only concerned people shouldn't see you. And from this, Gillian Shah says that Yerushalmi argues in the Bavli. The Bavli says something which is also for Mara sign, even Chadri Chadorim is also. Here you see not that way. Here you see as long as they don't see you, you're okay.
Except that was for Muktzah, wasn't it? Or was it for other things too?
Anything. I think it was anything. there was everything. Well, you cannot do even b'chadri chadorim, but here it seems that b'chadri chadorim, when you're in secret, you can do it. Okay. Rabbi Yisrael says b'Shabbos atam mahalich acharei seiko. On Shabbos you follow the stoking. With tumat mahalich achar gifufo. On tuma you follow the structure. Now the structure, I'm not sure I translated correctly. Just let me review that. On Shabbos, sometimes you have something which is a din of a kira, and it's sometimes a din of a tanur, right? You go after the way it's stoked up on that on Shabbos, whereas by Tumantar you go by the structure of the oven. Meaning that, for instance, here in our Mishnah we saw by a kupach, right? That sometimes there's a din of a tanur and sometimes a din of kira, depending what you use on it. So that means achar seiko, after what you put into it. However, by terms of Tumantara, when a tanur is finished, is considered it goes after structure, meaning he says here that there are different parameters for stoves which are made for ovens which are made for baking and ovens which are made for cooking. Because when they're considered finished, Kumar Malacha said the Mekabel Tuma is different depending what you normally do with it. Because for baking, the oven has to be cured to a greater extent than it has to be cured for just cooking, which is hotter, higher temperatures, I guess. So therefore, the bottom line here is that by Tuma, to determine whether it's Gemara Malacha or not, you go after the guf hatan, or the essence of the oven, what it's made for something which is, something which takes longer to cook or shorter to cook, and based on that, you determine when it's Gemara Malacha is when it's completed, vis-a-vis the halacha of Tuma, that from here on in it's Makabel Tuma. Is that clear?
Yeah. So one is the tuma. It's what you use it for.
Right. And the amount of work necessary to bring it to the stage of usability. Whereas for Shabbos, it depends what you put in as the fuel, whether it's straw or wood. That's what makes a difference. Okay, Einosim Beitza B'tzara Meicham B'shul Shatis Galgel. One cannot put an egg next to a hot water urn in order that it should get hot, or it should get cooked. And we shouldn't wrap it in hot towels. Rabbi Yossi allows you to put in hot towels. You should not put in sand and in the dirt along the way, in order that it should become roasted. Maitza Shosu Watch Tveria is a Maitza tribe with the people of Tveria. Veviu Silon showed Sonain. They brought a pipe of cold water betoch amo shel chamin into a canal of hot water by the baths of Tveria. Chacham said to them, "Im b'Shabbos, if you did this on Shabbos, or not if you did it on Shabbos, but if the water passed through on Shabbos, so then kechamit shulchum b'Shabbos. We regard this water as water which was heated up on Shabbos. Masurim b'Rechitza v'Shasiya, now to wash with them or drink them. Vim b'Yontif, it was done on Yontif. Kechamit shulchum b'Yontif, that's like hot water heated up by the Yontif. And then Masurim b'Rechitza, now to wash with them, but Mutar b'Shtir, you're allowed to drink them. Moyar Hagorov, a certain type of urn. A certain type of urn which has coals all around it in a double wall. You're allowed to drink with them on Shabbos. Antiche, which has holes only on the bottom, and for the coals only on the bottom. For some reason it gets hotter. The water inside gets hotter. So Antiche, even though it's been swept out of the coals, you're still not allowed to drink with it on Shabbos. Okay? Well, there wasn't vacuum. There were coals there. It was a coal chamber for the fire, so that would be much more chomer than a thermos. Okay, right. That's a similar thing. I did not know that, but that is a similar thing. Okay. Tamti, we learned over there. Tapur sharisko. If you have an apple which you ground up, you put it inside the dough. The chimtza, and the dough becomes fermented. A reza asura. It becomes aser. Tani Rabbi Yossi Matu, and Rabbi Yossi permits such a case. Rabbi Yossi said, "Ma pligid." b'mechametz, b'meima. We're on top of Chav Gimel and Alf now. You missed a very important Gilui Nashas. I was contemplating calling you and telling you should have to come on time tonight.
Because of that Gilui Nashas? Really?
Hang your head in shame. It's the last Gilui Nashas in Chav Beis on the base. When you see it, you'll know. Okay? So ma pligum b'mechametz b'meimach. It's where's the machlokes? Where you put an apple. Now this apple, I forgot to mention, is an apple of truma. So when you put the apple of truma into the dough, and it ferments, so it makes the dough truma dik, right? But that's only says the Gemara. That's only says the Gemara. Okay, that's only says the Gemara when you have apple juice which comes out of the apple. Mechametz begufo, if you use the body of the apple, somehow the acid in the apple causes the dough to ferment. So then, divrei kol mutter, everybody says it's mutter, because the apple itself does not have the status of being juice. In order to ferment something properly, you need to have juice, and therefore the apple itself just causes what the carbonator calls. It doesn't. I think it's called fermentation. It just doesn't cause it to rise. It's not. Doesn't leaven it. In any event, Rabbi Yossi Gedaite. The main reason to bring this down, we already mentioned this in one of the Masechta Trumas itself. Rabbi Yossi here in our Mishnah, who allows you to cook an egg in hot towels, is like Rabbi Yossi over there by the fermentation of truma dough. Kamadu Amar Taman, like he says over there, Eichel Matzah Bara. The reason why it doesn't become truma is because what does become truma, because even if you use the apple juice, is because it doesn't become properly fermented. It's not clear fermentation. So too he says here, ain't tavshil bara. He says here that it doesn't cook properly when you put an egg into a hot towel, so therefore it's not to be proper cooking. And just like over there, it's not proper fermentation. Here too, it's not proper cooking. They're both mutter.
By the way, Shaul Liebman would say that this Gemara was probably composed in Caesarea because the Aramaic is more similar to the Bali Aramaic.
He might have said that in the introduction, but he didn't say. I lived with Lieberman say he certainly doesn't say here often or.
No, it doesn't say here. It says
it's introduction. Okay. Okay, Bali Aramaic. It's interesting. He says those says Caesarea.
Yeah.
Babylonian Aramaic. Does he have proofs for that? Because I looked at a couple of things today, he didn't have any good proofs. Yeah.
Later, in the latter part of his introduction, he first establishes all these different 5 rules, then he shows why he says what he says.
Okay, that is interesting. I mean, Kenu Amaracha ain't tavshil bar. Tana Rabbi Yochanan bar Mary b'shelo heavy yodam mimenu. It's only if you didn't remove your hand from it. I will have your ulcer. Now the truth is, this sounds like it belongs back here. If you take a look on the top of Beis Hamikdash, just as now I didn't realize I was preparing. This is the exact same quote we had right before yesterday at the end of the day. That when can you put a pot back on the fire? When you keep your hand on it. It's the same people. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Meria, right? Here it's also Tana Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Meria, B'shlo every other man who have every your ulcer. It's the same thing with the hand. So the pashtus is this is a mistake. But the Korban Asano, I mean the Korban Ada, he takes it seriously. Was he also named Moshe? Yeah, he takes it seriously too. He says you still have to hold in your hand. In other words, when you're cooking the egg in the towel, in the hot towels, you have to keep in your hand because that way it's less derech bishul. But if you put it down, it becomes more derech bishul. It's an amazing kind of statement. I think I'm much more comfortable now, really taking it out now that I realize that it's an exact quote. Okay. One second, let me just make a note to that effect. Okay. Pagash Tomna B'Tevin. This is a case that you also had already. There's a lot of chazorah today. You have like a turnip, which you bury down into a. It's not ripe. That's right. It's a non-ripe date, non-ripe date, which fig, non-ripe fig. Shatan B'Tevin, which you put into hay in order to ripen. The charora shatan b'gecholim, and you have a charora, a cake, which are putting into a bed of coals. As long as part of the fig or part of the cake was revealed on Shabbos, despite the fact that it was encased in muktzah, nonetheless you're allowed to move it. All right, need tali b'Shabbos. You move them Shabbos, you lobby nato. If not, they can't be carried to born on Shabbos. Rabbi Lezer bar Tadoy Omer ben kach uben kach. Even if they don't have any leaves sticking out, toche b'shpud v'sakin. You can stick a skewer or a knife into them and take them out of the place where they're surrounded with muktzah. Atzar Rabbi Lezer bar Tadoy Rabbi Shimon. That which Rabbi Lezer bar Tadoy said is like Rabbi Shimon, that one is allowed to move things even as long as the hole won't collapse behind them. One is allowed to move them. Where do we say it? The Tani lo yigarodam esamita vesakisa vesasafso vesakatedra. A person cannot drag a bed, a chair, a bench, or an easy chair in nature because it makes a four on the ground. Rishim Matir Rishim permits that because obviously it's a davar shem miskavin, right? That's machlok. So Rishim whether davar shem miskavin is also or not. We would say we didn't have an intent. Rabbi Boy, B'Shem Rav Huna, and Rabbi Chaga, B'Shem Rav Zir, and Rabbi Yossi, B'Shem Rabbi Elah said, Moni Chachon to Rabbi Shimon. Chachon can see the point of Rabbi Shimon. The Kela Sherago Mishkos Betit. In a case where the dirt, in the case where the legs of the wagon are sunk into the mire, Shemutza Tautla, that one is allowed to, not a wagon, the legs of the chair are sunk into the pitch. That water, the mud, that you're allowed to carry it. Now, why are you allowed to carry it? Because if you move the fig, so then you're touching, or rather moving, by definition, the dirt all around, or whatever is encasing, which is muktzah. Here it's about a case where the chair is stuck into the mud, stuck into the ground. So you're allowed to move the chair out. Why? Because we're assuming that the stuff is not going to shift position when you move it out. Because the ground is semi-solid underneath it, or at least muddy. If it was in sand, so you'd be moving muktzah, because the sand would shift as you move the chair. But since it's a dirt, it's okay.
There'll be a hole.
Yeah. And that's why the Gemara says the next line, says the Gemara, just like you say allowed to carry it, so you're allowed to put it back, which is what you just said, okay? Because the hole remains. I'm Rabbi Yossi said, we also learned Nitolim b'Shabbos, right? That you can carry all the stuff on Shabbos, right? What are we referring to again? So Avanan said, I'm Rabbi Yossi, where am I?
So what are they carrying?
The figs.
Where? In Shusha?
No, but there's not a muktzah problem. He told me here it doesn't mean it's not a muktzah problem. Rabbi Yossi, you're allowed to move the figs on Shabbos, and here it's specifically it's about a case where you had like turnips and stuff covered in the ground, just for preservation, and you had the leaves sticking out, then you can go move it by the leaves, and it's not a problem. Okay? Says the Gemara, I'm Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Boon, Rabbi Shimoni. Could be this all going like Rabbi Shimon, who doesn't know the muktzah, but like Rabbi Yehuda, maybe all this is also. Rabbi Yossi Masdiso Amrakain. Rabbi Yossi, our Mishnah says this. It says, Kol ha'kelim ein yigroim chutz min agola. It's out on our Mishnah. It's a brisa. I apologize. It says you're not allowed to carry any kelim, not allowed to drag them specifically, except for a wagon, because it doesn't make a hole in the ground, but rather what does it do? It tamps the ground down, right? It packs it in underneath.
Does Reb Shimon holds it muktzah? He just limits it to a very narrow. Muktzah is a very limited.
We're going to discuss it tomorrow morning. Comes up the last blind on Shabbos. Okay? He does hold of some muktzahs. The Gemara tells us exactly what muktzahs he holds of tomorrow morning. So in any event, so that would try. So we say that would try. Rabbi Yossi brought down you can carry them in Shabbos. Could be going like Rabbi Shimon, right? And Rabbi Yossi says, do we have the brisa? What does the brisa say? Kol came any growing b'chutzin agolim neishiko veshes. You're not the only keli you're allowed to take is a brisa, is an agola, is a wagon, because the taka doesn't make a hole, right? It doesn't make a hole and it doesn't work the ground. It's smooth and broad and therefore it's not a problem. Okay, tvatzin and shvis. So says the Gemara, what are you going to do with the fact that it says shvis? Now, by that we mean that
isn't that the whole idea?
But that I mean that where do we mention this?
I don't understand.
1 second.
Maybe it looks like you're planting the turnip in the ground during Shemitah.
No, that could be a problem, but that's not the problem we're discussing now. I'll tell you about where this object becomes usher. The stuff which grew from your plant. I lost my place. I made it till tonight pretty well. Now tonight I'm tired. No, 1 second. They just turned on. I just turned on the radio this morning. They have this new drug in France. You heard the report?
I can't remember the name of it.
What? No, but Daphne or something like that. Yeah. You take it. Keep taking it for 2.5 days. Without negative side effects.
No side effects.
What's the good about that composition?
They didn't say.
They didn't know how it works.
It's not caffeine, no.
Even the doctor don't know how it works, but it works.
Yeah.
When you go to sleep, you sleep.
Dr. Laura was on TV last night.
Where?
Is that why you weren't there this morning?
No, I wasn't there this morning. Well, I was totally exhausted, yes, but it wasn't because of this. No, I don't watch Tom
I like
Snyder.
to see it.
Mix it together with my
About 4 o'clock.
Over that.
All right, guys. Vatin and Shviz. Now, the truth is, this is talking about something else. We didn't really have this case. I mean, we didn't mention explicitly. It said by this case of the pago should by the fig which you put into the ground. So there it says Shemitah, that it avoids the problem of Shemitah. Why? Because you didn't put it in the ground to plant it. What do you put in the ground for? Preservation. It says more. Is there possibly a problem with Shemitah according to Rabbi Shimon? There's no problem with Shemitah according to Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Shimon knows there's no problem with Svichim in Shemitah. Let it even be planted in the ground during Shemitah. It's not going to become aser. The Pasal HaShviz, Rabbi Shimon, this line is extraneous, and Lieberman takes it out. He plays some games here, but it's not necessary. It's obvious that there's something extraneous, superfluous here, but it's not a big deal. The Pasal HaShviz, Rabbi Shimon, how can you say Shviz, Rabbi Shimon? So Rabbi Shimon matters Shviz. Rabbi Shimon, it permits you to eat that which grows during Shemitah. And you're saying that we need the brayos as a chiddush to tell us that this is mutter. It's pashut that it's mutter. What's the shayla? No, there is a chiddush. I forgot Rabbi Shimon matter b'svichei shviz. So even though Rabbi Shimon allows svichei shviz that which grows during Shemitah, eats le mishum shvius, has problem of shvius. The korban takes this out, but I think that what it means is there's a problem of shvius, meaning it's a problem planting in shvius, and therefore the chiddush is even though you stored it in the ground, you're not planting in Shemitah. In other words, the whole point is not to tell you that there's no issue of svichei shvius, of stuff which grows wild during Shemitah, because that anyway we know. We know Reb Shimon doesn't know, there's a problem of Shvichei Shemitah. But the Kiddush is that we just put in the ground in order to stockpile it, so there's no problem either planting during Shvius, nor of Kedusha Shvius, nor even, although it's not Shvichei Shvius, which are also by Noah, it's Kedusha, it might have Kedusha Shvius, which means you have to give it a certain degree of sanctity. So therefore, we say that it doesn't have Shvius or Kedusha Shvius. Utanina doesn't have the prohibition of Shemitah, nor is it to have the sanctity of Kedusha, Shemitah. It's we learned out Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Shimon, Tia Rumi Latame, even though when they put this fig in the ground, it became torn and is no longer Tame. I don't know why. I couldn't find anybody who explains it adequately. Why? Just because you put it in the ground to preserve it, does it lose whatever tumor is attached to it? If it takes roots, I understand, but it didn't take roots yet. Nonetheless, we say it loses what tumor is attached to it. I don't know why. I really don't know why. So, Tiru N'Latame, Eino Choshesh, and to say they don't be concerned, Lo Mishum Shvi, it's not because of Shemitah, V'lo Mishum
obviously because of Mechubel Karka and
yeah, but it's not really Mechubel Karka, because then it should be considered planted in the ground.
Well, just, I guess, sticking around, they deemed to be Mechubel Karka, the person of a Kabul Tumah. And not only not a Kabul Tumah, it loses whatever Tumah they have because it's Karka.
I don't know. I just don't know. Could be. Maybe. Ain't no chashish lo mishum shvius lo mekdusha shum shvius. That's concerned with neither with Shemitah nor with the kedusha Shemitah. All right. Period. New sugya. Tamar Armin. Over there they said chama muteres. This is in Bavel. They said you're allowed to cook in the sun. Told us chama asur. You're not allowed to cook in sun in a vessel placed in the sun where it looks like told us asur. Looks like cooking in a vessel on the fire. Right. So therefore. Tamar mina chama muteres todos chama asura. That which to put say on the sun and let it cook is mutter. To put say in a pan in the sun is also. To Rabbana Dachar mean Rabbana Eretz Yisrael said bein chama bein tolades chama muteres. Even to put a pot in the hot the hot sun, that's already enough to permit you to make bread that way. Okay? Masisa Pliga Rabban. Our Mishnah is on the rabbis. Here you see you're not allowed to put it into sand or into whatever dirt of the road, right? So again, Masisa Pliga Rabban Dacha. Because it says Loid men v'chol v'alak drochi, now they put it in the sand nor in the dust of the road. No, it's not to todos achamo. This stuff is like a pot, like a pan. It's cooked up by the sun. You're not allowed to use it. You're only allowed to use the sun itself. So it says the Gemara. You know what? You misunderstood. Why does the Mishnah ask in the ratio using right, those things which come from the sun. Why? Because because you're making a hole in the ground when you furrow in the ground to bury the egg in the hole. It's really it's for cooking the sun is not using the sun, but rather, according to this, ashviya gumos, right, making holes. Okay. So, ilu amar bekem.
There's a prearranged hole.
Or ilu amar bekemach yos. What about if you heat up the flour in the sun, and then you put the egg in the flour? So that would be okay, because flour you can move on Shabbos. It's not a problem making a chrit. It's not a problem making a hole, right? Oh, what you need, just put an egg in the flour. It's totally dry. There's no kneading going on. Okay. Yeah, on the other end, there's a Mishnah charges on the rabbis. The Tama to the rabbis, the Tama, the rabbis of Bodo. It's not tiny. Will there shooting on Leomer? Megaglim Beitzim Agav Gag Shel Seed Roteach. When it's allowed to roll eggs and cook them on top of a hot roof. I skip. I'm not sure if I skipped. Rishigal Omer, going back 5 lines. Rishigal Omer Megalgim Beitzim Agav Gago Shel Seed Roteach. You're allowed to boil eggs on the roof of a boiling plaster. They Megalgim Beitzim Agabi Offer Roteach, but not on hot dirt. Ma'av Rabbanan Tamon. So, did I skip?
No. Not now.
The rabbis over there say in Chutz La'aretz, they say, even though it says Rosh Hashanah says allows you to do tolda sachama because he lets you put stuff down on the roof and see it in the sun. The same rabbis argue on this mice as well. They also argue, right? Nice. Ma'aser Shasu Anshe Tveria. The Ma'aser which had with the people of Tveria.
Because I paid you within the time, right? He says I paid you. And on that pay it in the time.
1 second. What happens is here is like this. There's a whole mess up in the Girsa. If I was more awake, I could make it more exciting, but I'm going to try anyway. This is going to give you your first taste of Lieberman in this Masechta. This is, this might be your 10th or 12th third taste, but, because he looked over base. Let me stand up. Truth is, I would like to get the book. I heard it's out of print. I don't know if it's out of print or not. Assuming that nobody in JDS could read the book, much less make it worthwhile to reissue it there. But it's a very good book. I heard a Maisa yesterday from Rabbi Tversky. It's not Chassidish Maisa, as you will see in a moment. Maisa, there was an American boy in Kol Torah. And they had a Tosefta Kivshuta, Lieberman's book on the Tosefta. This American boy was a zealous young man, so he decided he's going to ban the book. So he took the book out of the library. So they went to Shlomo Zalman. Shlomo Zalman says, I know who wrote it, and nonetheless, it's a good book. Let's give it back. So the boy refused to give it back. He never gave it back. So, Shlomo Zalman doesn't know the Americans as well as I do, so he didn't give it back. Anyway, to make a short story short, so he never gave it back. He got married. Subsequently, he never had any kids. So he thought back to himself, what did I do wrong? So he sent back the Sefer to Kol Torah. And he still didn't have kids. So that's why Chassidish Shemaisa, right? So Litvish Shemaisa. But the saying about the Yerushalmi Kivshuta, he did a good job on it. I was pretty impressed. All right. Now here, the Rashba already changes the gear, so he says, "Al daitin de Rabbanon the Tamon." It should be Al daitin de Rabbanon the Hocha. According to the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael, Ma'aser Shasu Anshe Tveria. In other words, the people in Tveria who did their Ma'aser, they did it according to people to the rabbis over here. Because what did the people in Tveria do? They took a pipe full of cold water and put it through a hot water trough, and the water in the cold pipe got heated up with the water in the hot pipe, and the hot pipe is chama because it's made Tveria are heated up by sun or by some similar process, and the cold water going through the pipe is todos chama. So the people in Tveria, they did their ma'aser like the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael, because rabbis in Eretz Yisrael told us chama's mutter, right? Al daita the Rabbana, al daita. Now the next line he changes. Al daita the Rabbana the Tamon, again is all based on the Rashba. Al daita the Rabbana Tamon, according to the rabbis over there, salkus mas nisa. The way Lieberman ends this, learns it's very ingenious. I'll die to the Rabban. Well, let me first read it without Lieberman, just like the Rashba. I'll die to the Rabban. The Talmud, according to the rabbis over there, Salakta Masnisim Kemaisa the Matrosu Anchetzfer. According to the rabbis in Bavel, just like our Mishnah did, it removed, in other words, it rejected the Maisa Shosu Anchetzfer, because the rabbis in Bavel, they answer Toldos Chama. They say Toldos Chama is not permitted. So the way Lieberman reads it, though, is like this. He says, this is a very smart thing, he says. I gotta give him credit for this. It's not his thing, but he brings out from the Noam Yerushalmi. It's not his thing. So even those of us who don't like, JTS people, the Noam Yerushalmi, he was kosher. So it says there, the Chiddush is that Salkas Masnisin means the end of the Mishnah. Remember, the beginning of the Mishnah was what? The beginning of the Mishnah spoke about putting stuff in the ground. Cooking an egg in the ground, right? The Yerushalmi holds that wasn't Isser. That was not Isser in and of itself, because you're allowed to cook in Toldos Chama. Why was it Isser? Because of Muktzah, right? Or because of Ashvuyei Gumos, because you are sticking in the ground. You're changing the nature. So according to the Yerushalmi perspective, there are two separate Mishnayos. There's one Mishnah which ends after bringing down the stuff with the dirt, because that's also because of Ashvuyei Gumos, and there's another Mishnah which then begins and discusses the concept of Toldos Chama, right? Whether it's Mutter also Anshe Tveria. But according to the Bavli, they're both issues of Toldos Chama, because the Bavli holds Toldos Chama is Osir, and that's the reason for the Reisha. So therefore, it's one continuous Mishnah, not two separate Mishnayos, but one continuous Mishnah. So this is the way he reads it. Again, Adaited Rabbanan Dach, according to the rabbis here, Meiser Shasu Anshe Tveria, the Meiser Shvilu Tveria did Salakto Masnisin. That removes the previous Mishnah. It's a separate Mishnah. Adaited Rabbanan Taman, according to the rabbis of over there, Lo Salkas Masnisin. The Mishnah doesn't end; it continues on. The two parts of the Mishnah are connected. Okay, that's the Skolish perspective on this Gemara. All right. Did any of you ever read the Promise? Read the Promise? That's the kind of stuff which got Malta in trouble. Okay. If you read The Chosen, you know a little bit about it, but not that much. All right. It's a very stupid book, but I didn't know why I said it. What? It's well written, but its agenda is very, very stupid. All right. Barishani says it's not coming. Me'erev Shabbos. Originally, they used to seal up the stoking area. Now think of a train, a steam engine. Ever seen a steam engine, right? Steam engine is you stoke the coal in a furnace, and that heats up the water, right? So they had a similar thing back then, right? So what happens if you want to use the water on Shabbos? So you stoke the furnace before Shabbos, and you close it up, so then you go in the water, right? That's our Gemara is going to discuss. But Shai says it's not coming Me'erev Shabbos. Originally, they would close up the furnaces from before Shabbos, means nothing brought to Shabbos, and they would go in and wash on Shabbos. Next, whoever became suspect. Some 8 Me'erev Shabbos to fill up wood in the furnace area from before Shabbos. He'd lake of a Shabbos and will continue to burn on Shabbos. Now, what's us with that? So the couple reasons here. The carbonated says because of chashad, because people are going to suspect that you put the wood on Shabbos, not before Shabbos. The Ran says you might open up the furnace compartment and start stoking the coals. Okay, so therefore it's also.
It's going to have a separate gas burner that heats up the water, which they shut off before Friday.
Right.
So the water's still hot.
That's what you have to do in order to use the water.
Okay.
Right.
Or you can use water.
Right. So Continue to burn Shabbos. So they forbade them to wash. They still allowed them to schwitz. So now these guys are really underhanded. It was feared that they would go in and wash, and v'amu, they would say mizim, that we were just schwitzing, just sweating. So at that point they answered both washing and sweating. This is another case there. There are two baths. One which had sweet water, and one which had salt water. So sweet water is okay because that looks like you're just going down to cool yourself up. But salt water is also right. So in any event, it's the exact opposite. The salt water is okay and not the sweet water. They're not allowed to wash in sweet water. They're allowed to wash in the salt water. So these two, they used to close up the What's that? Next to Leos, Megalius and so became suspect of peeling back the boards which covered the sweet water. For washing the sweet water. They would say we washed in the salt water. Eden, right? Also has a coast, so therefore they have to answer everything. Both washing and schwitzing and even in 1 or 2 tubs. Kamishis got you, but unlike the old days, people got frumer over time. Well, now they get frumer too, that's not a different right. But Kamishis got you, they became more observant. Kamishis got you, once they became more for the frumer, so they started being matter things for them again. Okay? Matir lambo, okay, then they continue in this process. Actually, Tulam made more to the point where they even allowed water in caves, which means fresh water, and Chamei Tveria, the hot springs of Tveria. They didn't allow you to bring a towel, however. They still allow bringing towels to the bathhouse, obviously where there's an eruv. Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva. China ben Akiva was one who permitted that. The Tani we learned Shlosh Dvarim Itir Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva. Why should it be also even where there is an eruv? By the way, squeezing, right? The Tani we learned Shlosh Dvarim Itir Chanina ben Akiva. 3 things it was matir. Hitir Eitzer Shabbayom. Now nobody knows what Eitzer Shabbayom is, but the Moshe says it's like bitza, and bitza means in this context a small boat. And he says the thing is that the small boat, we're not talking about vis-a-vis Shabbos. It says vis-a-vis going to get a meichatos, the ashes of the paraduma. So you were allowed to go. Normally, weren't allowed to take it in a ship. But here they allowed you to take a little boat out into the Kinneret to bring it to wherever you have to bring it. So that's how the Pnei Moshe explained it, but I'm not 100% satisfied with that, because the Chorah has something to do with Shabbos, not having to do with the problem of using something as a vehicle, right? So I would say that perhaps it's talking about that he allowed them to he allowed them to ride in their small boats on Shabbos. That on Shabbos he allowed the eitzos. Okay, which are making a very big chiddush, of course. So it's not clear here. This the Pnei Moshe is pretty sure of. He says that he had this in Shabbos, in order to fulfill water from the lake, which is a harmless to your boat, you have to have a kazutzro, which is a plank, which is 4 by 4 amos, over the water from which you pull up the water. Okay? Vita Vasuntis, and he also was one who matir towels. Tamati, we learned over there, Rochitz b'moro b'mei Tveria. Somebody would wash himself in the waters of a cave, or the waters of Tveria. Mistapek, he should dry himself off. Afilu b'asar lutios. Well, actually, that was a statement. He could use 10 towels. Below Yivien b'yodo. He's not going to bring them home in his own hand. I mean, where's he leaving these 10 towels? So it says more, what's he going to do? top of Shmuel Marmayavi. What's it going to do? Top of Chav Dalam Rav. So it says Gemara, Havin Svura Lo Yoli. Sorry, I made that wrong. Mayavi Hadit Svura Lo Yoli Lo Shamish. What am I going to do with this Talmid Chacham? Svura is a Talmid Chacham who never properly learned. He's asking a Klutz Kasha. Lo Amasdisin Kodem Achlois Hiravos Luntios. This Mishnah, which doesn't mention Avos Luntios, bringing the staffs or the sticks. So actually, that which happened actually to Loi Tiru Avos Luntios, it took place before they actually issued this heter which we're talking about. And Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yirmiyah, and Rabbi Yehuda B'Shem Shmuel said Rebbe Hitul. This Rebbe's one of those matir pals very late. That's what didn't make it any Mishnah. Tonight we learned Amish Tatin, but it's not allowed to rub oneself or pour water on one's body. Lo b'chamin, not with hot water. V'lo b'tzori, not with cold water. Amra Yehuda ben Paz said, that may be true, but that's about regular hot water, not about Chamei Tveria. And these rabbis didn't know the Chamei Tveria, they matter everything. The Tani we learned, Harochitz Mei Tveria, somebody who washes in the waters of Tveria. He can sprinkle it on himself, meaning the Paraduma water, when it gets made. But others cannot sprinkle for him. I'm making a mistake. This is talking about on Shabbos. So he can sprinkle on himself moisture. But other people, not other people, because that would ruin the hecker aspect. Okay, he has to know that it's only much for him, not for anybody else. Okay? Right. What am I? But other people shouldn't do it because that overcomes the hecker. We're not allowed to sprinkle upon yourself. Because you cause more steam. In other words, it's like a melacha because you're causing steam in that case. Mechabit es a karka.
We don't believe it says so.
How are you just trying to say marbet sahevel?
He said that he has to be dry.
I think that's because it's caused what? Steam, caused more steam, more steam. And also mechabit zakarka. Also, if you pour on other people. Yeah, because you're causing more steam. Mechabit zakarka, and also it makes the ground smooth. Rabbi Yachba Yitzchak called Mischem Rabbi Bar Memel. Rabbi Yachba Yitzchak and Rabbi Bar Memel came to swim the Tarim in the swimming pool of Bar Yastif. Some Roman, I guess. So they saw there a certain individual Mazli Fargarmate sprinkling water on himself. So he said, because they also be Shabbos, and I'll do this in the Shabbos, Nishu Marbe es a Chevel, Mideshu Marbe es Hevel, because you expand the amount of steam, and you make the land grow the more necessary repairs. Rabbi Avo, there's a very difficult line. Rabbi Avo, I'm going to translate it like the Lieberman. Rabbi Avo, Choronin Mezalfon Nafalolov. Rabbanon, Rabbi Avo was also in the bathhouse that day. Other people sprinkling water upon him. V'hu Amar, and he said, V'ha. This is also I can't accept your service of sprinkling water on me. It's not permissible. Okay? Is that clear? So here, this is what Lieberman's Chiddush is. He puts in the period after V'ha. Okay, and now we have a new statement. Rabbi Levante went in, Mischem Rabbi Yoina to squeeze Rabbi Yoina. Chama Chad Barnash Misalfin Legar Mei. They saw this individual sprinkling water on themselves. Amar Leisa, they said, Leisa Nantzrichim Chashash Lichidoya. We don't have to concern with this person and stop from doing that because the person they now to is only a.
That's how we get like the second cup of tea. We do not require one to clean out and dry.
I have to say an 8 echad, but am I correct about that?
Yeah, it's not necessary because the moist is not considered anything towards us. In other words, we look at it as not because of the again. Okay. But we're talking about this moisture, not actual.
I don't know. I don't remember what I wanted to say. Let's go back a couple lines. Rabbi Levanti oil mischem Rabbi Yoni went to the bliss with Rabbi Yoni. One day, Barnash Matzah made a certain individual who sprinkled water on himself. Amar Leis, he said, Leis anan tzrichim l'chashosh l'chudai. We don't have to follow the opinion of a solitary posek. The one who said that even one-on-one is. Even when I do it to myself, it's also. No, here it was matir even himself. So obviously mutter if somebody else does it to you, or more mutter. This is why even when you do it to yourself. So the question is, why did he stop this practice? So now he said, we don't have to concern ourselves with this chashash. I'm sorry, I'm not making sense.
Isn't that Yechidoi referring to a single individual that they saw?
No. It's trying to a single individual say you're not allowed to toss water on yourself in the bathhouse. Who was Rabbi Bar Bar Memo. So it means that you're allowed to do a single. Even a single person could do it on himself, right? Even a solitary person could do it himself, right? This Baran Ashken Mazifa Garmei person do himself is okay. That's what we're trying to say. Basically, what we're trying to say is that there is no takana against sprinkling yourself. Certainly, other people could sprinkle you for you, but there's not even any takana sprinkling yourself. Okay, right? Rabbi Yitzchak Ruba al Mischem Rebbe. Yitzchak the Great went into to wash with Rebbe, with Rabbi Nasi. And I put my plate of oil inside my bowl of water in order to heat it up, the oil. So Amalei said, Hava go natla. Don't put the oil in a vessel which held the vinegar while it's cooking. Put it inside another vessel. Unasis cliche in order to make it a cliche. Okay, because in general, when we were heating things up, it's better to do it in a cliche. Okay? Rabbi Yaakov Shem Rishub Levi said, Sholim Hilchos Amerot Beis Amerot was allowed to ask the halachos of the bathhouse in the bathhouse. Hilchos Bisagis in the halachos of the bathroom. Guess where? The Beis Agis in the bathroom. Hamer Kadoh, as is for such a case. Rabbi Shimon Lazar al Mischar Meir Shimon Lazar went to swim with Rabbi Meir. Amlei Maul Kanech. So Rabbi Shimon Lazar asked Rabbi Meir, can I wipe away? I forgot what I'm wiping away. Oh, wiping himself with a towel. Amlei Osi said it's also. Am I allowed to rinse myself off? Sprinkle water on myself. Amlei Osi said it's also okay. So he asked, V'lo kain Shmuel Shoel Rab Ma'ala no Samei Memokum HaMatunav. Don't we have a Maisa where Shmuel asks Rab what you can answer in a Memokum HaMatunav when you hear a bracha, and I discuss when you hear a bracha. V'omar Shmuel says Rab said the proper respect is also.
So you're in the bathroom and you hear someone making a bracha outside.
Right, you can't answer. That's right. But here comes the clincher why it's brought down here. It's Aser. And the fact I'm telling you Aser is also Aser. Because the bathhouse, I have no right to speak halacha. You asked me a question, I'm answering, but I really shouldn't be answering because it's a bathhouse, right? So we see it in a bathhouse. Now you're not allowed to talk halacha. You're not even allowed to talk about halachas of the bathhouse, right? So Ashkach Tanoi. Ashkach Tanoi. So we find some machlokas Tanoi that before we brought down the Bryce, which shows that you are allowed to mention halachas in the bathhouse. Here we find Bryce says Tani. Ain't surely milchus and merchus and milchus basakisa, you're allowed to do it, not allowed to do it in a bathhouse. Okay? Even yontif, if it's a yontif, chaimit shulchma be yontif. Okay, we're talking about the waters of Tveria, and they become like waters heat up on yontif. What is the halach of waters heat up on yontif? Right? Chaimit shulchma be yontif, or v'chein chaimit shulchma erev Shabbos l'Shabbos. For that matter, hot water cooked on Erev Shabbos for Shabbos. Rav Shmuel, Rav and Shmuel both said Chadamar Merachitz, they're machlokas. One of them said Merachitz ben putting the other Rav. You can use this hot water to wash your feet, hands, and face. The Choradamar Misrachitz ben Kol Gufo one's allowed to put one's entire body in, as long as one does it with a shinui, Evorim, limb by limb, right? We don't know who of the two said what. That what Shmuel said, you can wash your hands, face, and when you, this is going back to what we said before, when you leave something behind, what do you do? Where was that before? Did we have it before? I don't think so, did we? Okay, name it. So we might Shmuel Machitz ben Pion of the Varaklov. You're allowed to wash your feet, hands, and face. So heavy Rav Duamar Machitz ben Kol Gufo Evorim must be Rav is more makel. He allows to do it all the limbs as long as you do it one by one. A certain philosopher asked Bar Kapora. And another alternate scenario, Avlate, we just had it in the Bavli, Shala Levi Slisa. He asked Levi, the castrated one, the following question. How can you have a dichotomy on Yontif that you're allowed to drink hot water but not allowed to wash out water? So he said, I'll give you a marshal. If you see a soris, somebody who's castrated, embracing your wife, right? Shemai no ralach, doesn't it feel bad for you? So he said, yes. So he said, what is the guy detracting from you? He's, even with the new pill, he can't do anything, right? So what's he doing to you, right? So it says, nevertheless, Amar Lo, Shaloti's part said, I don't want my wife to be priestess. That's what bothers me. Amar Le, here too, he said, you have to understand why they asked her to wash oneself with water on Yontif. Except according to Rav, feet, hands, and face, according to Shmuel, Evorim, because we don't want you to become poretz too, right? Poretz meaning that you'll transgress other averes as a result of us giving you a loophole over here, right? It says, once he left the room, so the student said, heavy. This guy, you pushed him away with a lame excuse, right? Well, the kana means like literally a reed. Vanu, we are your Talmidim. Ma Toshi, what are you going to respond? In other words, what are you going to tell us? Why vis-a-vis a person, why vis-a-vis a person you're allowed to drink on Shabbos from the hot water, but not allowed to not allowed to wash yourself on Shabbos from the hot water. So it said to him, what can you do on Yontif? Only Ochel Nefesh. What's Ochel Nefesh? Dover Hashav Ochel Nefesh. Something everybody needs. Everybody needs to eat, but not everybody needs to bathe, and therefore only one is mutter, not the other one. Okay, Molia Agorov, Shosi Men of Shabbos. If you're an emptied out urn, you're allowed to drink from an Shabbos. Says Mori Mohoi Meno Gorov Lo, but if it's not empty out. Why is that? Omer Rabbi Shain said Nesha Gedolim Nogim Gechoim Nogos Begufo. Because the coals touch the body. So what if the coals touch the body? So I guess it gets particularly hot. It's like cooking on Shabbos. Omer Rabbi Chagiga Breda Avila Mivnei Sharuach Nichneses Begufo Gechoim Boros. Ordinarily you can't use it because the wind comes in and fans the flames. Okay? So, I forgot what we got onto this for. Oh, okay. Again, Rabbi Chanina Breda of Hilim Nesha Ruach Nenes Begufa Cholim Baros were afraid to let you use water in there if there are any coals left, because you might open a door and wind will get in and fan the flames. The truth is that it's a different chashash altogether. Why only building in stages? Because it's made in stages, right? And therefore, if you put the whole vessel out at once, so maybe it will deteriorate quickly. Shema nisachal divuko. Maybe the glue will deteriorate, maybe the plaster will deteriorate. Vu mosif mayim, and it'll come to add water, right? So therefore, you're not allowed to use it on Shabbos unless you remove all the coals.
What about for drinking?
No, even for drinking not. That's the less harmer one, however. If you move all the coals, it's okay, because then we're not afraid you're going to take it apart and fan the flames or add water, whatever the case may be. But Antiche is a vessel where the coals are even hotter. And he says by Mulyar, the carbonate and Pnei Moshe say, Mulyar, the coals all around. By Antiche, the coals are on the bottom, but they're even hotter for some reason. I guess they don't have so much surface area, and they come into the contact with the water much less, right? They're underneath the bottom, but they have much less contact with the water overall. So there, even though you removed all the coals, you still can't drink from it. There's no guard for kotuma, it doesn't work at all. Because it gets extra special warmth from its walls. Rabbana Getzor Rav Huna B'Shem Rav said you might have a group of psucha motzah, but if it was the coals are removed and also you open the door, the stoking door like in the locomotive, so then you're allowed to use it on Shabbos. Why? Because then the heat escapes very quickly and we're not afraid you're going to come and do something wrong. Okay, we're limping home tonight. We'll stop here.